Hello, welcome to the Rankers. It's your Gen X man with you. Once again, I'm one of your hosts, Kyra, and with me is my co-host, Stuart McPhee. How are you tonight, Stuart?
Conrad, you son of a bitch. I'm great. Good to see you. Last time I saw you, I think we saw some brothers Gallagher in Melbourne. Is that correct?
We did indeed. On different nights, but we
Mm.
definitely got to catch up, which was good. And I'm sure we'll discuss that in our episode coming up. So we actually have three episodes for you tonight. Obviously, we won't release them all in one hit, but we're going to record our um, sort of like summation of the Oasis tour now that it's all done and dusted. We're also going to look into the Ashes, and then we've got our 2025 summary. So that's to come. They won't all be released at one time, but over a matter of weeks. So we hope you enjoy those. So tonight we're going to start with the Oasis wrap-up. Stuart, you went to two shows, is that correct? You went to one in Scotland and one in Melbourne, is that right?
That's correct. Yes.
Yep.
I think we may have already discussed the Scotland one in the lead up to the Australian tour, but yeah, it was certainly great to experience them in different hemispheres and get a real sense of what felt like going to see a musical and seeing the production tour, which is a great insight on a band. But look, I've already spoken about seeing them. Your thoughts,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
you got to see them twice, right?
I did get to see them
Yeah.
twice. So we're here on January the 18th, 2026, in fact, just for any historical purposes for anyone who may be watching this in 30 years' time. So, yes, I did get to see them twice. So I got to see them night one in Melbourne, which was their first show of their Australian tour. And I also got to see them in night two in Sydney, which was their last show of the Sydney tour. Sorry, the Australian tour. Got to hear two Liam monologues. I think I got the octopus and the dingo, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. Which I think was unique to the Australian tours. For anyone who doesn't know and hasn't had a chance to jump on YouTube, uh, it's got the subtitles there to help you along, and it's just Liam, mentioning how much of a cool fuck he is and how he met some sort of Australian animal, although I'm not sure how Australian an octopus is, but anyway, and it's actually quite funny. So yeah, so for me, it was a bit of a pilgrimage going down to Melbourne. Hadn't been to Melbourne, I don't think, since I went down there for work, just a bit after the World Cup in 2015. Always loved going to Melbourne. Love how easy it is to get around on the public transport system. But the thing that absolutely really got to me was just the vibe that was around, particularly on that first night. The pubs were full, as we experienced.
Mm.
A lot of English people around, which was funny, which actually created an even better vibe, in my opinion. So we flew down on the Thursday night. We tried to go to some Oasis trivia thing down in South Melbourne, but it was all booked out, and we didn't get in to see that. But ended up at a pub in South Melbourne that is famous for palmy on the bone. And apparently, we tried to Google that, and it's the only place in the world that actually does that. So that was part of the experience. And then, really, just waking up on the Friday, it was Oasis Day. We started our pub crawl around 2 o'clock. Caught up with you, obviously, around 5 o'clock, and then just let the night flow on. That pilgrimage down into Marvel Stadium, getting inside. A little disappointed the roof was closed, but it is what it is. Got in there, planned to have a few drinks in there, but the lines were too big, so just pretty much sat. Not sat, but stood center of stage, pretty far back. Like we weren't getting into the mosh pit. I had my 13-year-old son with me at the time, so we weren't going to get right deep in there. But yeah, just stood there, excuse me, sang the anthems, got stuck in, and just sat, I just stood back and just totally got, I don't know, overcome by the Oasis vibe. Doing the Posden, we didn't know what we were doing. We couldn't actually understand Liam from how far back we were. And it's like he's telling us to turn around. Everyone starts turning around and we start jumping up and down. So yeah, it was a really, really cool experience.
Great, great. So yeah, I went the night after. I had a caught up with a great old mate of mine, Jared, who uh, we were captain and vice captain at school. We hadn't seen each other in about I'd say about 10 to 12 years, and yeah, he organised a one of the more sort of deluxe packages where we got a like essentially a merchandise kit full of exclusive stuff. We also had a tour of the so the traveling tour museum that they had as a pop-up exhibition, and then there was a bar which was you had to pay for, but meant that we didn't have to line up. So it was a little bit different experience to what you had. And I think your experience sort of mirrored what I had in Edinburgh, which was it's too long to get a beer. So just and it was at that gig that I pretty much watched Oasis sober. Where this one I had a few under my belt, but not to the point where you could tell there were a few people in the crowd on night two that weren't going to remember much of the gig. We got our seats. We were probably side of stage. So if we're in the seated section, but no one was seated. So if you think about on in terms of football parlance, it was probably at the half forward line, or the probably the 35-meter line for the rugby league aficionados. So much different vibe and view from where I was in Edinburgh. The interesting, I was the same as you around the interest on keeping the roof closed because there was a little bit of a weather activity on the Friday that you went, and then on the Saturday it was fine. But I think if anything, it probably kept the sound in the stadium and had it sort of bouncing back, not in a bad way, but in a carrying the sound throughout the entire stadium. So it probably didn't bother me as much in the end. But I can see some arguments for, well, why wouldn't you have it open? But they were great, just as great as what it was in Edinburgh. A lot of people kept asking me, and they probably did a similar thing with you, with what was better, Melbourne or Sydney. And for me, it was between Edinburgh and Melbourne, and I think they performed just as well on both nights. But it was the overwhelming emotion of seeing them again for the first time that trumps anything else that happened afterwards. And I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on whether that was the same, whether it was a similar sort of performance by them, but you can't beat the first time you see them again.
I actually don't think there was too much between the two performances, and I think from the videos and stuff I've seen from the entire tour, it's pretty consistent the whole way around. I guess as different from previous incarnations of Oasis, where it might have been, more about the rock and roll and the drinking and the, partying and all that sort of stuff. This was 100% about the music. So it was pretty clear that they were there to put on the best show possible. For me, the Melbourne one was the better one, and it's probably just that whole, like you said, that first time seeing them. For me, the last time I saw them, I think was 2005. So we're looking at a good 20 years since I'd seen them. Even the night after, so the night you went, we just found this like really cool bar. And just sat there, the four of us, my son, my two mates, and myself, and just reminisced and just chatted and just talked and just, being in the same space that Oasis were in. It was just such a great weekend, like one of the best weekends of my life. Then going down for Sydney the next time, we did some pretty cool things around Sydney, except we went down a Thursday night again, but this time it was the Saturday night, which was the gig. Um, Bit of a hassle getting out to Acor. Great stadium out there. Did get a fireworks display at the end of the gig though, at the closing down of Champagne Supernova. So that was a bit cool. Obviously, couldn't have been done at Marvel with the roof closed, but yeah, there wasn't that much between the performance. I guess it's just your sense or your vibe when you're there and you're watching it.
Yeah, which I think there's two things: the evolution of the band, where 25, 30 years ago you'd go, well, who knows what you're going to get on each
Mm,
night, and the unpredictability of that made it one of the legendary tenets of the band. But to my point earlier on, it feeling like uh, a, a a stage production, and I don't use production in a bad way.
mm,
It's just that they're very much a well-oiled machine. They know how much this means to people,
mm,
and they know that they can't fuck it up. But I think the history that they've got and what they've built between predominantly the two of them, but everyone else that was part of the touring band meant that it was we're too big to fail,
mm,
and that's why for the 30 odd shows that they did, I can't recall exactly how many. I can't think of one report where they had a really shit night.
agree.
They may have played a bum note here and there, but overall, it helped that they had the same set list, but it meant that what you got at Wembley was exactly the same thing that you got in Santiago. So,
Yeah.
yeah, which I think leads itself to probably the next question around what happens from here. And
Oh, you beat me to it. Yeah.
sorry, mate.
Yeah, no, 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 absolutely. We're co-hosts. Yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think we've sort of hinted at it throughout the other episodes we've done, but I think we're a good month, 2 months away from um, their last show, so I think we can, make some sort of guess as to what will happen. What's been interesting is the whole way through this, there's been very little media from either of the boys, other than a couple of tweets from Liam on, X or whatever it's called now. I think Noel's done a couple of radio interviews, mostly with sports shows, but there's been no hint as to what's happening next from any members of the band. So I guess it's up to us, you and me, the biggest
Sure.
Oasis fans there are, to you know dig in and have a guess at what you think will happen. So we'll start with you, Stuart. You're the more educated of both of us. What do you think is going to happen with Oasis?
Well, you say that, but A, you're the teacher, and B, we did the same uni course. I look, I think, um, well, we certainly know that there's a documentary of some sort that is
Well, I've heard of that. I don't know if it's
assuming.
100% happening.
Well, it seems like it's in the can, and I'd imagine that it would have involved
It makes sense, I guess.
footage of at least the lead up to Cardiff. I think also um, there was talk of another big concert in the UK.
Like
It's
Nebworth or
yeah, Nebworth. I was trying to think of the name of Nebworth the other day, and all I had was reading stuck in my head, or reading. And I knew it wasn't Glastonbury. Yeah, Nebworth. The smart money seems to be on Nebworth, and then just some European continent shows, which they haven't done. That would make the most sense to me. Beyond that, who really knows? I mean, I imagine both Liam and Noel want to continue with their solo careers, and I'm still adamant that they're not going to delve into new music as a group. Your opinion may differ from that. It just that there is a fine balance that they need to get. So if you look at other legacy artists who have gone back in and broken bread and toured again over the years, so your Simon and Garfunkel's, who famously broke up, then came back together. They didn't do new music. They realized that where the power of their relevancy, and also the almighty dollar lay was in touring. The Eagles did it and did some new music, but not a great deal. It they're probably the two biggest examples of this. I think even when the Stone Roses came back, and many RIP since we last caught up, I don't believe they did new. They may have done a couple of singles, and that was it. Yeah, I can't see them doing new music together, but also would be happy to be proven wrong on that. So yeah, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm probably a bit more on the side of that. I think that they will. Um, I think the other big act you missed out in your list there that did reunite and tour was the Police. They didn't do any new music. It was pretty much, this is a world tour. Come and see us. This is your last chance.
Yep.
Which is what Noel had kind of said in his, or had put into the Oasis press release when they first announced the tour. Although I get more of a sense that this was Noel testing the waters to see how much Liam has actually matured. Because you listen to some people, and apparently Noel's got a whole stadium album, an Oasis-like album ready to go.
Mm.
And I actually think Liam has always said, I'll drop my solo career to do Oasis as soon as, whenever.
Mm.
So I think at the start of the tour, it's just touring. That's it. They might do a tour every couple of years, but keep to their solo stuff. But I think given how successful the tour is and how professional the band has been, I think, well, it essentially it lies with Noel. What does Noel want to do? Does Noel want to record with Liam, with the band, and then tour an album or whatever? Or does he want to go back to his solo stuff? So, I don't know. What was he playing with the High Flying Birds before Oasis? Was it small venues? Was it stadiums? He's always get it. That's probably not going to be at the extreme or the extent that they had on this tour, but you're probably going to you're going to sell out stadiums. Probably not all around the world, but at least in England, if they do another album or whatever. So I don't know.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't. So
yeah, and regardless, they know that they're guaranteed whatever the first single is will hit number one, and the album will hit number one, and because not only the built-in fan base, but that's just how they roll there. So look, it'll be interesting. I think also the fact that Liam's songwriting is now at a point where it's sort of undeniable that he can write songs as good as Noel can, which I think also helps in terms of the mix, because I know that was something that was of a burden to Noel, certainly by album 3 and 4. So it'll be interesting either way.
Oh well, I guess unless they announce another tour or release new music, we probably won't have another Oasis podcast episode for a very long time anyway. So any final things you want to say on our Oasis love fest that we've got going here on the Rakers at the moment?
Look, I don't think anything else here. Just sort of interested to see what the next iteration of it is. I said I'd be the one thing that I really would like to know is the back and forth and the machinations of putting it all together, and I that's why I think a documentary would work really well, and hopefully something of that ilk comes out. Just seeing them potentially rehearsing ready for the tour and organising it and deciding where and that they're all sort of the inside baseball things that I know you and I like, particularly myself. So I'd be keen to see that, and hopefully we start to get some announcements soon on that front.
Well, if there is a documentary that comes out, the definite one thing I want to find out is who was behind the no press, other than that photo shoot that they did,
Mm.
no press by either of the brothers or anyone around the band. Everything was kept shut tight-lipped. No one said a word about anything. No requests for interviews were accepted. Nothing like this. Was it Noel? Was it a publicist? Was it Liam's fiance or wife or whatever she is now? Who was the one behind this juggernaut? Because I think it added to the mystique and the success of the tour. The fact that the brothers didn't get together and do an interview with Jules Holland or whoever
Yeah.
interviews people these days. It was just this is what's happening. These are the dates. Buy a ticket, come and see us, or
Yeah.
that's all you're gonna see of us.
Yeah. In any other iteration of this, it would have been Zane Lowe exclusive on Apple
Yeah,
Podcasts. And definitely not us. But I think it's interesting. I've just been seen and read two Bowie related things. So there's the doco, the last act or the final act, which is about the last sort of 20 odd years or 25 years of Bowie's life, and particularly around the harkening back to some of the things he was doing in his early days, and one of the things around that was this sort of complete media blackout of particularly the last sort of 10 years of his life, after he had heart troubles, after a gig in Germany, I think. But I've also just read Cameron Crowe's memoir called The Uncool about his time as a very young Rolling Stone journalist, and talks about him trying to crack the nut that was David Bowie in the mid-70s and trying to score an interview with him. And he eventually gets it, spoiler alert, by getting chummy with Ron Wood, who is everyone's favourite Rolling Stone, and Ron inviting him to a party of Bowie's and saying, "Oh yeah, here's Cameron. He's a good guy." I don't know why he sounds like an Italian mobster, but but that mystique of Bowie, particularly in the 70s, was he's this alien. He's this otherworldly creature. He doesn't talk to the press. Everything is done through what is out on stage, and that is what Oasis were able to execute. And I think you're right. That's whoever came up with that strategy deserves a lot of the plaudits. I think.
Oh,
I think you're
absolutely.
right. Mm.
All right, I think we might leave it there, Stuart.
Thank you very much.
Unless there's some sort of Oasis news, coming out soon. I think we'll leave these Oasis topics for a little bit until there's something a bit more substantial to talk about. Of course, though, if you want us to talk about it, please let us know on the socials. Please like and subscribe and all those sorts of things. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, and all those sorts of things. All right, any final words, Stuart?
Nope. Over to you, sir.
All right, just remember you got to keep them separated. All right, thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time with our Ashes special on the Rankers, which we are about to record, but you won't see for a while. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.